Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of r/entitled People Stories. Our first story we'll be reading today. Neighbor blocked our car in the driveway, so I got her car towed. After that, customer's milkshake isn't milky enough. And after that, am I the jerk for wanting my stepdaughter to switch schools her junior year to live with us? Now for every thumbs up this video gets, one Karen gets her car towed. What would I need a car for? I never leave this room. So please smash that like button and subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. Neighbor blocked our car in the driveway, so I got her car towed. My fiance, 30 female, and I, 29 male, barely moved into this house a few months ago. The first week, we noticed a car parked right on our driveway, which obviously didn't belong there. When we went outside, the lady who lived next door asked if this was okay. Her house is right at the corner of the street and there's no driveway. She said the last owner was fine with letting her park there, so she hoped we wouldn't mind. Our driveway is big enough for 2 cars, so we said for now it was okay. After our son was born and I had to go back to work, we decided to buy a second car so it's easier for her to get around. All 3 cars don't fit, so we had to tell our neighbor she can't park there anymore. Ever since, it's become a whole issue. Once, she was parked behind me when I was leaving early in the morning, so I had to go banging on her door at 6 a.m. She had the audacity to be mad for me waking her up. I reminded her that she can't park there again, so we thought she got the message. Second time was when we were on our way home from the park. She was already parked there, so we would have had to park behind her. I went to go knock, and she said she was just putting her groceries away since we weren't home and the driveway is closer. This last time when it happened, my car wasn't working, so my brother came to pick me up early. My fiance had to take our son to his 4-month appointment, but the lady's darn car was parked right behind her, so there was no way for her to pull out of the driveway. She told me the neighbor wasn't answering the door. It got late, so she had to reschedule her appointment. I came home after and I called the cops to come deal with this because I was just so tired. Since they couldn't reach her, they did end up towing the car. When she found out, she was at my door, angry. She had been a few blocks down at her friend's house, which was why she didn't answer. But now she says she's stressed because she doesn't have the money to get her car back and it's our fault. Since both our cars were there, she assumed we were both home, and if anything, we would have used my car to pull out of the driveway. My neighbor kept complaining how wrong we were to go to that extreme of making her lose her car when she absolutely needs it. We've just ignored her since then, but now every time we're stepping out, she glares right at us. I've had my car towed before too, so we know it's a nightmare of a feat to get it out of impound. That's why I'm asking if I'm the jerk. It's been almost a week since this happened, with still no sign of her car parked on the street, so obviously she hasn't got it back yet. Not the jerk. You asked nicely, she ignored you. You pounded on her door on repeated occasions not so nicely, and she ignored that you didn't want her parking there. The next logical step was to get the car towed, because she wasn't getting the message. Bet she won't park there once she has her car back. Problem solved. Also, if the doctor charged you for a visit that you had to cancel last minute, I would send the bill to her too. Don't expect her to pay it, but at least to realize that she is costing you for being the jerk. In my opinion, you gave her too many chances. None of this was your fault. You were 100% clear with her from the beginning. Your neighbor has some seriously skewed way of rationalizing this. Don't let it rub off on you. Not the jerk. Not the jerk. If she needed her car, she shouldn't be parking it somewhere where she knew she no longer had permission to park it. Get a camera though, because retaliation is likely. Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you get your neighbor's car towed if they kept parking in your driveway or not? Please let us know. I sure would, but first I'd throw about a dozen eggs on it, especially if it's a really hot day. Yes. Customer's milkshake isn't milky enough. Years ago, I used to work at a popular ice cream joint. The place was pretty chill. Coworkers were fun to be around, and the pay was alright for a teenager. But, as with every other food service job, the customers made the experience a whole lot worse. Always had the regular annoyances, people yelling at you for long wait lines, orders being wrong, etc. Even had a guy get up on the counter and go off on me because we were out of bananas for banana splits. But one experience really stood out from the others. We had a regular customer who would come in, no kidding, every day to get a strawberry shake. He was fine with long waits or if our card machines were down. But this dude would summon the might of the devil if his milkshake wasn't made with enough milk in it. Worse, he would sit there and wait until you remade it to his liking. Stupid store policy made us remake any order for free if the customer wasn't happy with it. One day, this dude comes in and orders, guess what? A strawberry milkshake. I was working the ice cream bar, so filled with defeat, I started making his order. Company recipe was 3 scoops of ice cream for a regular smoothie. Since I knew this guy liked his milky, I only put 2. I handed it to him and went about the next orders, until 5 minutes later he comes back and screams at me that the milkshake wasn't milky enough. Now, every time in the past, I always made his this way, 2 scoops to give it that milky consistency. This time, I guess he wanted to just mess with me. At this point, I'd had enough. The day had been rough as it is, so I really didn't want to handle this, especially since I could tell by the grin on his face that he was trying to make my day worse. This is where the malicious compliance comes in. I decided to make the milkiest milkshake possible, but while still being a milkshake by technicality. I went back to my station and started the concoction. I didn't put 2 scoops, I didn't put 1 scoop. I put 1 tablespoon of strawberry ice cream and filled it up to the brim with milk. After the pointless blending, I handed him the milkshake he didn't want, but the one he deserved. I watched him with my own grin on my face beaming back at him while he tried his milkshake. He took a sip and immediately started going off on me that it was just milk. I told him, "No, sir, I put strawberry ice cream in there, just as you asked." I could see the rage in his eyes as he demanded his order be remade. I then politely informed him, "Our store policy only lets you have your order remade once for free." His face burned bright red as he muttered something under his breath, then stormed out the door, slamming it behind him. Every time after that, he never asked for me to remake his order. A few months later, I got a better job where I didn't have to deal with angry customers. I used to work at an ice cream store as well. We had a guy who asked for a blueberry shake with extra blueberries. When he got his shake, he complained that there weren't enough blueberries in it. Fine, we made him another one with even more blueberries, but still not an unreasonable amount. He then complained that there were too many blueberries and that they kept clogging up his straw. The manager gave him a soda spoon and told him to leave. I really want some ice cream now. Am I the jerk for wanting my stepdaughter to switch schools her junior year to live with us? My husband and I have been married for 2 years and have 5 kids. His daughter from a previous marriage, who's 16, my 2 sons from a previous relationship, 13 and 15, and 2 kids together who are 3 and 1. My husband's daughter lived primarily with her mother until she was in 8th grade, when she was offered a scholarship to go to a very good boarding school for high school. I've never agreed with the idea of sending teenagers to live away from family, but her mother and my then fiance agreed that it would be beneficial for her. They drafted a new custody agreement to reflect the new school schedule. My husband moved out of state, so he always had summers and holidays anyway. When I married my husband, I thought that she would be just a day boarder, which seems better than full-time, so I let it go. By the time I learned the truth, 2020 was in full swing, and removing her wouldn't have been safe even if she wanted to leave, which she didn't. Fast forward to 2022. She's 16 years old and a junior. I recently learned that her mother moved back to her home country 6 months ago and has been letting my stepdaughter manage her own money. This means that there's now not even a parent in the same state or even the side of the country for my stepdaughter. She is completely independent in her day-to-day life. My stepdaughter has every weekend unsupervised to do whatever she pleases and independent access to not only multiple major cities, but is only a day trip from another country that she has dual citizenship in. I've seen Facebook posts of her going to art shows in other states without even pretending to ask one of her parents for permission. This isn't acceptable. It's not okay for a teen to just go live her own life, especially to this degree. We have 2 sons that are only 1 and 3 years behind her, and they're starting to see the double standard as well. I would never let any of my kids do the things my stepdaughter is doing. She's my kid too, and this needs to stop. She needs to change schools to be either with her mother or with us and be part of a family. My husband says that it's different because she was raised differently and is just more responsible, but that's BS. If he actually thinks she's not being a normal 16-year-old with that level of freedom, he's lying to himself. My stepdaughter loves her school, of course, and is very resistant to changing schools for all of 1 year of high school to leave her friends, and no doubt doesn't want to actually have rules. I'm still pushing the issue, and now my husband and stepdaughter are mad at me for trying to change the status quo. The boys are mad at me for having double standards, and other family members are mad at me for either over or understepping in my role. Am I the jerk? You're the jerk. She's at a boarding school and doesn't need to ask permission to see art shows. You're being dramatic and she's not even your kid. On top of that, you're controlling. You're acting as if she's getting into trouble and interacting with bad people her age or older. Calm down. You have no good reason for her to change schools, and you are overstepping your role. Her parents already created a plan, and you have to respect that. She's asking the school for day-to-day things she would need parental permission for, and unless OP is a time traveler, the telephone and email exists. Stepdaughter could very well be asking mom over the phone or via text to be getting permission to travel out of state. The only point OP might have is to suggest that dad's, assuming he wants that, permission be necessary to travel out of state, etc. Most teenagers have spending money that they can act with on their own. Daughter likely has a roommate and an RA equivalent on the floor, house mother, etc., which are possibly stricter than most parents. I'm sure his kid would tell him before she goes out of state, so it's not like she's completely running rogue. OP is just mad she has no control over a situation that doesn't concern her. You're the jerk. She hasn't given you any reason to doubt her ability to take care of herself and behave appropriately, so you would be punishing her for literally nothing. She's going to art shows? How wild. Just leave the kid alone. She's not your kid, and she's been fine this long. Removing her from a situation that works for her and isn't harming anyone would be cruel and unreasonable. You should be proud she's independent and cultured. Well, what do you think? Is OP a jerk, or is she in the right? Please let us know. I heard chill pills are on sale right now, just FYI. Am I the jerk for showing my husband proof that his mom offered to bring him a steak dish to the hospital? My husband was in an accident last week. He was staying at the hospital for his broken leg. Only me and his mom were there. His mom and I don't get along at all. He tells me I'm overreacting or paranoid whenever I point out how she's mistreating me. He complained about hospital food, saying it had no taste, and asked me to make his favorite meal, which is a steak dish, and bring it to him at the hospital. Noting that steak isn't cheap where we live, and I didn't have enough time to prepare it, I told him I will see what I can do. Then his mom said if I'm truly a supportive wife, then I'd make it happen. Once we went outside his room, his mom's tone changed. She suddenly seemed nice and said that she could see how exhausted I was, and so I should go home and not worry about the steak dish because she said she'd make it for him. I asked if she was 100% sure, and she said, absolutely. The next visit I showed up, and my husband asked why I didn't bring the steak dish he asked for. I saw his mom there. I told him his mom offered to make it for him instead and told me not to worry about it. He didn't believe me and was like, Mom said that? I'm not buying it. Mom, you really said that? Her reaction shocked me. She acted confused and said that I'm his wife, and she didn't know why I'd expect her to perform my duties for me. I was confused and didn't know what to do. My husband seemed upset the entire visit, and I waited till his mom left to talk. I swore to him his mom said she'd take care of it, but he said he didn't believe me. I pulled my phone out, called his mom, and put her on speaker so he could hear the conversation. I said, "Didn't you say you'd make the steak dish and that I didn't have to worry about it?" She replied, "I did, but I obviously wasn't actually going to do it. I was just trying to help my son see how his wife is during the rough times, and you took the bait." My husband raised his eyebrow. He got upset. He called her later and picked a fight, then said no more visiting. She lost it, called me petty and manipulative, and blasted me on Facebook, saying I stopped her from seeing her son only because I couldn't get her to do things for me, like cooking for my own husband. Now his family is criticizing me for this. Not the jerk, but your husband and his mother both are. Who demands that people bring them steak dinners in the hospital? He didn't like the hospital food? What a baby. Bad apples don't fall far from the bad tree. I don't see him demanding anything here. He asked, she said she'd see what she can do. He followed up on it later. And if you've ever had hospital food, or if your coping mechanisms revolve around food at all, you'd know why he was asking for a decent meal in a stressful time. He's not the jerk, and OP is not the jerk. His mother is completely the jerk here. He is the jerk for never believing his wife when it comes to how his mother treats her. And it sounds like he got undeniable proof that OP was right all along, doesn't it? At which point he immediately changed his tune, which is 100% the appropriate reaction. The appropriate reaction would be to trust your spouse in the first place without them having to trick the other party into admitting the truth. OP literally says, "But he didn't believe me." You don't get kudos for finally believing her when the proof is irrefutable. Edit. I'm not replying to this any further because people apparently can't fathom their mom lying to them. I never said spouses don't lie, but if you are in a marriage where you don't believe your spouse on something like this, I'm sorry. Not the jerk. She called you manipulative? To be honest, he doesn't sound ideal. I'm sure he can cope with hospital food for a few days. Also, bring a steak dish? It will be cold and a mess to eat. Just bring him pizza or something. If you don't have kids already, I'd suggest you move as far as you can. She will make your life horrible. You're clearly, in her eyes, a bad wife. Next, you'll be a bad mother. Am I the jerk? I didn't disclose the details of my inheritance to my wife. My wife has been a stay-at-home wife since the beginning of our marriage. She got an inheritance from her grandfather a few years ago. It was about 5 million Indian rupees, about 65,000 US dollars. I was super excited when I came to know about it, thinking we'd be able to finally repay our previous landlord. However, she refused, saying that it's her money gifted to her by her grandfather. She also said that it was the only money she could claim as just hers, so she wanted to keep it. I was super hurt because I've never once told her that my earnings were mine only. I always treated it like our money. I then told her that if she didn't share her inheritance, any future inheritances of mine wouldn't be shared among us either. She agreed. She then went on to buy herself a car. Fast forward to now, almost 4 years later. My parents left me their entire assets, which comes to about 40 million Indian rupees, about 522,000 US dollars. I told my wife I got an inheritance, and she seemed quite unbothered by it. She said that I can do whatever I want with it. First, I paid off my student loans and bought myself a nice laptop. Then I invested the rest of it. My wife asked me where I got the money to pay off my student loans and buy myself a laptop. I reminded her about my inheritance. She was surprised that my inheritance was so much and started saying that I was selfish for not having told her the exact amount. I reminded her of our agreement and said that it shouldn't matter how much inheritance I got, since each of us was free to do whatever we wanted with our own inheritances. I also told her that if she had asked me, I would have told her. She started crying and said that I kept such a big information away from her. She's locked herself in the room and is refusing to speak to me. Am I the jerk? Edit. Also, point to be noted is that 30 million out of the 40 million was used to repay my student loans. I spent close to about 2 lakhs on my laptop. I invested 8 lakhs. I studied abroad, so my student loans were a lot. Your wife. I don't think we should share inheritances. You. Don't share your inheritance. Your wife. Why didn't you share? Not the jerk. She made her own bed. You both probably need to get better about viewing this marriage as a partnership. But in this specific situation, she's in the wrong. Everyone sucks here. Fair is fair, but you two are going to have a terrible life together if you carry on this way. Not the jerk. I don't think of inheritances as a marriage property. Your wife is being a hypocrite because she agreed that your inheritance is yours. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know. Yowza, I'm getting stressed out just thinking about dealing with her. Am I the jerk for feeding my sister non-vegan food while babysitting? My dad has a 4-year-old daughter with his current wife, my stepmom. My stepmom is vegan and extremely health conscious after surviving cancer, and only allows my sister food that's vegan and organic. She believes that anything else is bad for you. I try to be understanding of this, although I myself am not a vegan or vegetarian. She asked me last minute to babysit my sister last week and dropped her off at my apartment at around 9 a.m. that morning. She initially told me that she'd only be gone for 2 to 3 hours, but didn't pick her up until almost 2 p.m. due to an appointment running late. My stepmom packed a bag that contained only apple slices, a zip bag of cauliflower crackers, and some organic juice. By noon, I was hungry and didn't want to make myself food without feeding her, and she had already eaten her snacks. My healthy food options were limited, so I made some veggie pizzas for us and gave her juice and fruit snacks as well. After my stepmom came to pick her up, I told her what we had for lunch, and she was upset that I gave her daughter non-vegan cheese and fruit snacks, but referred to everything as unhealthy. She thought I should have either waited until she came to pick her up or given her some of my raw veggies that we put on the pizza to tide her appetite over until she was picked up. My dad has since informed me that my stepmom doesn't want me to babysit again until I can learn to respect her wishes regarding her parenting. I can see how I may be the jerk, given that I knew it wasn't vegan, but then I also tried my best and didn't just plop a steak in front of her. Opinions? Am I the jerk? Edit. I did not call or text beforehand, because my stepmom informed me that her phone would be on silent while she was at her appointments. I also did not have a booster seat to drive to the store, and food delivery services are expensive where I live, which I don't really have the extra money for at this moment. Broke college student things. Anyway, I was told to add this information to the post, so I hope it provides for clarity. Not the jerk. Were you supposed to just skip feeding her daughter lunch because she failed to provide you with food? Your dad has informed you that stepmom doesn't want you to babysit until you can learn to respect her wishes? First of all, you did this last minute as a favor, so it sounds to me like she's the one who needs you to be willing to babysit, not the other way around. Secondly, you don't need to learn to respect her wishes. She needs to provide you with food so you can respect her wishes. I'm guessing her anger at you is going to last right up until she needs a last-minute babysitter again, and then she'll remember to pack enough food. Stepmom may be livid with OP now, but she'll be there when she needs you. You did the best you could under the circumstances. Am I the jerk for demanding to be a partner in my wife's business? During lockdown, my wife took up crafting and has become quite good at it. She makes beautiful creations. We've talked in general terms about setting up a business or renting a table at a craft show to sell her goods, but didn't take any concrete action until recently. One day, my wife was commenting how she wished she could do her crafts as a full-time job. I decided to surprise her and registered her preferred domain name, and over the course of a couple weeks, secretly built her an online store. I showed her the store and things got real very quickly. We built a business plan, spent several $1,000s of joint funds and startup costs, and have been actively pursuing sales, with some early success and positive feedback. It is the early days and we are not yet profitable. I am involved in all aspects of the business: procurement, sales, marketing, fulfillment, except design and production. I have also happily taken on more of the housework so she has time to create products. Over the last few days, my wife has gotten very territorial and cringes when I talk about our business. At times, she actively tries to correct me and insists it is her business. She sees my role somewhere between an employee and what is expected of a supportive husband. I get it. This business is her dream that I was helping her realize. I don't want to overstep, and I have reassured her that she is CEO and gets final say over all aspects of the business, but I am still a co-founder and owner. I feel like the recognition that this is a joint business is important given the amount of time and energy we're both investing into it. It is a journey we are doing together. Life partners and business partners. Her dream has become my dream. Here's where I may be the jerk. My wife continues to be protective, and I told my wife that unless she accepts me as a partner, let's say 49%, I will find other ways to support her, but won't be working on the business. There is too much work for one person to do, and I'm afraid of sabotaging the business by ceasing work. She's given me lame answers that she appreciates my support, but won't say the magic words that she considers me a business partner. Am I overstepping, and am I the jerk? Summary: I helped my wife start a business. I may be the jerk for refusing to work on the business because my wife refuses to recognize me as a business partner. Everyone sucks here. You are assuming ownership of an entity you were not invited to own. Your partner is exploiting the labor of a third party, you, without fair compensation. You are entitled to an ownership stake considering the effort you have put in, but you grossly overstepped assuming it. Your wife's casual dismissal of the value of your contribution is ungrateful, naive, and exploitive. You both should have hashed this out first. That's the vibe I'm getting. Maybe the wife would have been perfectly fine doing all of this from the jump by herself, but OP sorta made himself a co-owner without her expressed consent or knowledge when he did all that initial stuff by himself. Granted, she benefited a lot, but it wouldn't be surprising if she felt some ways about her expressing she wanted to do this business herself, and then suddenly he's inserted himself into every aspect of it, starting it without her, and is now demanding half ownership of what she probably wanted to be her own business venture. I agree everyone sucks here. She's benefited greatly from his contributions, but I don't blame her for feeling some resentment towards him for how he went about a lot of this. I'd personally feel some kind of way if I told my spouse I wanted to start my own company and they took it upon themselves to start it without me. I'm sure she appreciated the effort and thought, but I'd be upset if I didn't get to be a primary part of the initial startup for my dream business idea. That's the part that sticks out to me. He took something she wanted to do for herself, did it without her in secret, and then co-opted her dream as now being their dream once he realized he could make a buck off of it. This doesn't feel like helping, it feels like he railroaded so that he could put her in exactly this position. She either accepts his terms or he quits on her and ruins the business he started for her behind her back. You're the jerk. You used a surprise to shoehorn yourself into her project. Not okay. Your surprise was in no way a gift if it actually meant that you were going to claim half ownership. And you never should have presented finished things to her as a means to demand ownership of a business that she wanted to start. Ownership and respective job roles should have been discussed in advance of any work, and you circumvented that and demanded partnership based on work she did not ask you for. You are being a sketchy and manipulative business partner here. You're the jerk. You turned doing a nice thing for your wife into a hostile takeover, and then when you don't get your own way, you try to pull the rug out from under her. You're the jerk because you took on a bunch of tasks for her without talking to her ahead of time and set all these expectations, and then demanded that she meet your expectations that you didn't discuss with her first. Seriously, dude, don't mix personal relationships with business. I'll be the one to say it. If the roles were reversed, most of you would be supporting her. You started the business, girl. You deserve more than half. Don't let him take advantage of you like that. This is one of those posts where you all just hate the dude because this is Reddit. Edit, I'm a girl, but I've spent enough time on Reddit to know how y'all think. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know. Am I the jerk for telling my boyfriend's colleagues that I won't cook for them anymore? I, female, live with my boyfriend in a condo we rent together in Toronto. I'm Indian and I moved here about 3 years ago and he's Canadian. I love cooking and I'm vegetarian since birth. He became a vegetarian because of his ex and he didn't want to switch after breaking up with her. Thank goodness for me, because I don't know how to cook meat. I only know how to make Indian food, but I learned quite a bit of new recipes during lockdown, and I experiment with this because we both work from home. Recently, he started going to the office, and I made lunch for him daily. After a week or so, he told me not to wake up early to make lunch just for him, but I told him I didn't mind that. He then mentioned the reason, stating it was because his colleagues and friends eat his lunch anyway, because it's homemade, and he eats whatever takeout or food they get. So I told him that I can pack an extra portion, which they can share, and that was working well for a few weeks. Last weekend, he decided to invite his said friends over because we haven't officially met. When they came over, they appreciated the homemade food, and it's something they look forward to, but one person pointed out that I don't pack enough protein, and I should pack food that has a balanced diet. I sorta don't remember what he said after that because I was internally crying. When my boyfriend saw my reaction change, he told him that he never seems to care about protein when he's gulping down all the beer, and that's when the group sort of divided into two. I then told them that I will stop cooking for all of them, and one of those guys pointed out that I was the jerk for punishing the entire group because of one person's comment. P.S. I know this is childish, but I kind of took it personally because I love cooking so much. So much that my boyfriend does all the cleaning and dishes when I take care of cooking. I don't know if my reaction was a cultural thing, and if this is taken as a joke here. Edit 1. Thank you so much, you guys are really sweet. Many commented to ask why my boyfriend gave his food away. He told me during lunch when he gets his food out, everybody would say something about the smell and would want to try a bite. Because it's about 5 people, he gives away 60% of his food. So I decided to make extra portion, though it's not sufficient for all 5. My boyfriend would at least eat his tummy full. Honestly, I taught him to share food, and I think it's my fault to begin with. Edit 2. Because most of my time in Canada has been during lockdown, I don't have a lot of friends. Please feel free to DM me if you live near Toronto, and I promise you a good meal with plenty of protein. Not the jerk. You've been overly kind and generous. If you don't want to cook for any reason, then don't. They can bring their own lunches to work. OP. That's the problem. They seldom bring lunch and only order food. That's not healthy compared to homemade food. But it's not your problem. You're not obligated to feed these moochers. Your boyfriend needs to stop letting people eat his food, and they need to figure out their own lunch. Not the jerk. My Karen sister expects me to pay her mortgage. My sister bought a house with her boyfriend last year. They got a mortgage, and when they broke up, he managed to wiggle his way out and leave her to keep paying the mortgage alone. She's making the payments, but barely, and she's had money issues that means she's at the point where she can't even afford dinner some nights. Obviously, we're, me, mom, dad, and siblings, worried about her, and we want to help her out. My current lease runs out at the end of the month, and half her mortgage is way less than the average rent in the area. So we talked, and I agreed that I, along with my 3 kids, would move in with her for a while. I would pay rent, which would cover half of her monthly mortgage payment and utilities, and we'd buy our own food, but we'd still share. This way, she'd get her mortgage paid off, my kids and I get to live in a nice house at below average rate, and we know that my sister is doing okay, financially and mentally. However, with less than a month before the move, we talked today to just get up to speed on how everything is going on her end, and she asked to rearrange a few things so that we can move in. She said, "Your half is all sorted." I asked what she meant. There are 2 bedrooms and a bathroom on each floor, so she was thinking that we could have the upstairs and she could have the downstairs. I asked what happens with the kitchen, and she explained that she'll have exclusive use of the kitchen, and when I bring my stuff over, we could set up a kitchenette, a microwave, a kettle, and a mini fridge on the top floor. I asked where my kids were meant to sleep, and she said that my daughter could sleep in my room and my sons could bunk together. My understanding before this was that I get my own room, as does my daughter, and there are no limits on floors or bathrooms or the kitchen, as my sister has said that as there were 4 bedrooms, there was enough room for everyone, and mentioned rearranging the rooms, so I assumed that she meant she was taking the fact I'm bringing 3 kids into consideration. She said as I'm paying for half of everything, I get half the house. I said that my kids and I can't share 2 bedrooms and a microwave, and she said I was being dramatic and we'll be fine. However, I said that this isn't going to work for us, and if she wants us to move in, we're going to need her to condense her office and bedroom into one room, so my daughter can have the free room, plus use of the kitchen. My sister said that as we would be using the majority of the house, I should pay at least 75% of the mortgage, possibly 100%, as there's 4 of us and 1 of her. I then said that this really is not going to work out for us, so I will look for a new place with my kids and she can figure her money out herself. She then called me a jerk as she could lose the house without my help, and said I was holding money over her head, and said I was entitled to think that I would get more than half the house when I'm only paying 50% of the mortgage. I said she's the one setting restrictions, and if I had known I was only paying for the top floor, then I wouldn't even have agreed to move in. Am I the jerk? Info. My sons are 11 and 13. My daughter is 5. My sister said if I paid 75% of the mortgage, I could either have a 3rd room or kitchen access, and 100% gets me 3 rooms and kitchen access, which is the point that I said this would not work out. Support our channel by joining as a member today, and we'll give you a shout out in our next video. Or come watch this video next. You won't believe what Karen does in that one.